Let's present our next company. It's Bioxytran Inc. They are an OTCQB company trading under the ticker symbol BIXT.
We reject the idea that living with this virus is okay. 1 in 5 people have long COVID. We think we can do something about it. Our galectin antagonist binds to the little spikes proteins. And when it binds to spike proteins, it prevents it from entering the cell. We eliminated the viral load to undetectable levels in 7 days. There's no expected limitations. You'll see there the little kid to the old man. We could even put a pregnant person in there. There's no limitations using our molecule. One of the things that happened with Paxlovid is a lot of people got these viral rebounds by day 10. We went out to day 14 and there was no evidence of rebounds. What we are, in a nutshell, is we're the first line defense against all mutation of coronaviruses. Are we really competing against Paxlovid and molnupiravir and these guys? No, not really. We are in our own class. They're going after people with underlying medical conditions. We're taking everybody in our trial. It's a major sea change and a major way to look at things. We believe that we can get a label expansion, and it's got a non-toxic profile, so it's going to be treated favorably with the FDA. So our goal is drug approval as soon as possible.
Are these types of results normal? Is this too good to be true?
These types of results we got, they're rare. And it's rare when you consider that there's probably been well over 10,000 clinical trials conducted over the past decade. Now, our results are in a preprint format. That means we haven't completed our peer review, but we're really confident that that's going to happen. We think that's going to be a major, major value inflection point once a peer review article is reviewed. The takeaway out of this is we have a way to get drugs quickly to market.
Hello, greetings, and welcome back. I hope you guys are having a great week so far. If you haven't already, hit the like button. If you're down there in the chats, hit the like button. If you're watching, hit the like button and subscribe. Share this video because, listen, we're going to keep doing what we're doing here at the BFC, and that's getting down and dirty with the people in the trenches of the trading world. You know, we got a lot to get to today. It was really good watching that intro, that emerging growth conference that featured BIXT, and we're going to get there in a second. But, man, I'm in a good mood. Hey, my Buffalo Bills rocked the Raiders 38-10. Very, very happy about that. It was a great birthday weekend overall. It was excellent. So, you know, I had a good time with friends and family. So let's take a look at the chat and see who we have with me here tonight. Older, wiser games. You're fired up. I'm fired up. And he was first. Tactical reviews. E-Rock for president. Hey, it couldn't be any worse, could it? Dino. Ronnie Replay. Kelly O'Neill. Stephen Capone. I'm dialed in from Honolulu. So hello, Hawaii. All right. Got Gary Wright. Jordan, I know where you're at. What's up, Jordan? Doug, good to have you. The one and only Lisa Matthews. Bella, great having you here. Michael Singleton, always a pleasure to have you on. John Don and Paul Ryskowski. And I know I said that correctly. So I think I said that correctly. So that's it. And yeah, bravo to me. Finally did something right. It is great having you guys here. And like I said, we're just going to keep doing what we're doing here at the BFC. And that's going and doing firsthand due diligence and bringing in CEOs, CFOs, CCOs, and many people that are heavily invested in small cap and OTC stocks. So, man, good to have you here. So, you know, before we begin, surprise, let's welcome Jord Hugga in. He's going to be my co-host tonight. Jord, welcome back to the BFC. How you doing?
I'm doing fantastic, E-Rock. Thanks so much for having me.
Anytime, dude. I hope you're having a great day, man.
Man, I tell you, I don't know if it's as good as your birthday, which I know was pretty epic, and we were all happy about that. That was just a magical day all around for everyone. But no, today's been great. You know, there's so much going on. I'm super excited about tonight's interview. I know there's going to be a lot of great stuff to talk about there. And there's just so many possibilities in the market right now. I mean, if anything, it's nice to see the sentiment changing to I wish I had more money, because people see that there's a lot of things worth buying, even if the prices aren't reflecting their values.
Yeah, it was a good day. We got that really good news on Friday, so it was a nice little birthday gift for Mila. So, and we're actually gonna share that the most recent update, by the way, momentarily. After we get to the nitty gritty of this BFC episode. This week's guest worked as a broker and eventual research analyst at Dean Witter and National Securities. He's a longtime biotech consultant expertise for public or private biotech companies with disruptive technologies. He's the founder of Falcon Strategic Research and holds a bachelor's in economics. And not to mention, he's an Air Force Academy graduate and pilot. So you might say this guy has a little bit of experience. And I'm talking about the self-proclaimed Galectin evangelist, Mike Sheikh. Let's bring him in. Mike, welcome.
How you doing?
What is going on? How you been?
I'm great. Great to be here.
Welcome to
BFC. Great birthday too.
It was a great day. I know you and I had a chance to talk and do a pre-interview last week, and you and I chatted for an hour. That could have been a podcast in and of itself.
Gosh, yeah. It's on the same wavelength, you know.
Yeah, there's a lot you have to share with us today. And we were going through this show, tons of questions, tons of information. And you're going to be on multiple times to really share the nitty gritty of what's going on, because there is a lot you have to share. And, I've been watching a lot of your most recent podcasts, so I'm honored to have you on, and it's nice to have a chance to talk with you. Yeah. Now, like I said,
community. Yeah.
Yeah. So first,
I love what you're doing. The deep due diligence dives. I mean, it's wonderful. It's wonderful. More people need to be doing what you're doing instead of just kind of looking at charts and stuff like that. I think that's the real value add that you have on this channel.
Well, I appreciate that. And like I said, we really try to look at the people behind the ticker, because it's easy to look at a chart, so I want to find out what the companies are doing and what they're going to bring to the markets that they're serving. So just tell us a little bit more about your experience and what led you to be working with Bioxytran.
I love pain. No, I'm teasing. I was an IR consultant for Bioxytran, and then COVID hit, and we're looking at, everyone on the planet was looking. If you're biotech, we're looking at, there's got to be some way to repurpose something to tackle this COVID thing, and then we came upon a discovery. And at the time, what we were doing is BXT25. That's our oxygenation molecule. We were looking at going like, well, people die because of fluid in the lungs. What about our BXT25? That was the repurposing part of our search and discovery. So we were thinking, wow, this could stop people from dying, just our oxygenation molecule. But then we stumbled upon something pretty amazing, and that was we looked at basically these galectins and how are they used in influenza and SARS-CoV-1, and we were theorizing, man, we can apply this to COVID-19, and that's pretty much, that's right around that time frames when I kind of transitioned from just being an IR consultant to being a principal of the company. And that was my journey.
Man, now those who have followed the stock, you guys were caveat emptor along with 38 other companies back in the day due to mentioning COVID, because people were trying to take advantage of this. So that's what I gathered. But you guys are the only one out of those 38 that came back. How the hell did it happen? How the hell did you get back out of CE? And why were those businesses targeted?
Well, first of all, the cream always rises to the top. Okay, that's a given. But what the agency was doing back then is they're really trying to protect investors from scams. I mean, you remember they had all these COVID cures, coming out on Amazon. They were cracking down on it there. So really, their intentions were good, but they were doing these blanket trading halts for companies that just mentioned COVID. And, I would consider that like they're basically carpet bombing, all these companies wanting to put them out of, existence. And, I think we were the collateral damage, or not. I think we were the collateral damage. We were the collateral damage, because I think history will show that we really do have a solution.
Yeah.
Well,
And
why, I hope that covers, what happened. It's just, it was unfortunate, because, it affected our ability to really advance the science quickly, because where did our access to capital go? We basically were forced to look more in the private setting because the public markets were closed to us. So that was just unfortunate.
Yeah. And that obviously is the risk that the company has taken, because you aren't established on the NYSE, so you're held to those standards where you got lumped in with a bunch of other small companies.
No, we were
unfortunately.
we were OTCQB.
Were you QB at the time as
yeah,
well?
we were QB, and we're back at the same level that we started at.
Yeah.
And all these other companies that you mentioned, I don't think they're coming back.
Yeah, it's crazy. And so for anybody invested in a CE stock, and if you're watching today, well, now you know that there is a potential. We'll use statistics: 1 in 38% chance. 1 in 38 get out.
It's way less than that, but yeah.
Oh, it is. It is definitely
from COVID. Yeah.
Yeah. No. Now you guys seriously had recently like major news. You filed S1 and you secured 1.7 million in funding. That is big. Now, why is this so significant for Bioxytran? Tell me much about the progress. How much progress can you guys make with that cash? And the shares were raised, if I'm correct, at 15.3 cents. And if you could tell us how long those shares are restricted, and
folks,
for how long.
you dug deep
break down
the
break down for us.
This guy knows how to do due diligence. Yes, we're really happy that this institutional investor came on board. We've been talking to them for a long time, and they really ran us through the due diligence gauntlet. So I'm very happy that they do that, because now they really understand what they're buying. So I have nothing but accolades for Triton. They're our institutional investor. Now, why this is so exciting is because this gives us the runway to basically go forward with their phase 3 in India and basically get to this regulatory endpoint. And when we get to this endpoint, that's where the big R, the revenue, starts to come into stage. That's where we can start doing, or actually we can do licensing deals before that. But we can also do some sort of licensing deals. So that's basically the real advantage of it. It gives us flexibility. So we're really excited to continue to advancing the science, and people are going to be astounded by this, by the science when it comes out.
Okay, and
develop it more.
In regards to the phase 3, you guys feel fairly confident that you are going to pass? Because I know I was reading a statistic that said, there are roughly 33% of phase 3 trials that fail. How confident are you that you guys are going to succeed in this phase 3?
Yeah, your statistics are spot on. And when you get to phase 3, they're higher. So it goes by the level and phase that you're at. So we have 2 peer-reviewed clinical trials with placebo, right? And we had basically p-values less than 0.05 and 0.001. So when you look at those type of statistics, we had, in both of those trials, we had 100% responders rate. So we have 2 clinical trials with 100% responders rate. That's something to talk about. Now, I have a question for you. Maybe I'll stump you. But in the past decade, there's been 10,000 clinical trials, let's say. Now, out of those 10,000 clinical trials, just spitball for me, how many of them do you think got a 100% responders rate?
Out of 10,000?
Out of 10,000.
I'm going to say 0.
150.
Nope. The answer is 2. The answer is 2. The first
Two.
one
Close.
was Gilead Sciences back in 2013, and they had the cure. They had the cure for hepatitis C, and with their drug Harvoni. I tweeted this a while ago, but they went up. I think it was 80 billion in valuation after they announced their 100% responders rate. So that was pretty interesting. And then the other company is ours.
Oh, wow. That's
okay.
Unbelievable. See, I thought you were going to be number 3. Wow.
No.
That's still pretty freaking amazing. I mean, 2 out of 10,000. So that
pretty much, yeah. I mean,
speaks to your confidence, I should say.
Those are round numbers, but they're in the ballpark. Yeah.
And being peer reviewed is huge as well. So
2 peer reviewed, 2.
Yep.
And we have more coming too.
Yeah, that's especially impressive, right? Because I mean, there's actually outright cured hepatitis C. Isn't that correct? So
yeah, they cured it. Yeah,
that's pretty good company to be in.
Yeah, we can't say the C word yet.
Yeah. Well, you know what? And I want to bring something up because you did mention how that sort of backfired. And you actually shared an article with me about what you called a provocative article. And I get it because I read it and I understood the gist of where you're coming from and where a lot of us feel. And I'm going to read a portion of that in a second. But, basically talking about how, Big Pharma looks to treat the symptoms, not necessarily for the cures. And I think that speaks volumes. And one thing that really got me going during reading this article was the section where it says negative perception of Big Pharma, adding more fuel to the negative perception of Big Pharma was the COVID debate on ivermectin as a treatment. This controversy fanned the flames of discontent with the FDA for not allowing its use. About 57% of Americans have heard about ivermectin for the treatment for COVID-19 and may think that it could be effective despite the FDA warning. On September 1st of this year, the appeals court found in favor of doctors that wanted to prescribe ivermectin for their COVID-19 patients and were stymied by the FDA's ivermectin campaign. Now, let me tell you something right now, and this is the God's honest truth. I got COVID bad. I was laid up for 2 weeks solid. I had a fever. Dude, I was laid up hard. Fever, delusional dreams. It was bizarro, man. When I was sweating, it smelled like death. Like my senses were screwed up and I didn't want to take anything. I didn't take the jab. I didn't take nothing. So what I did was nothing. I just sat there and got sick, horribly sick for 2 weeks. And then I called my friend who actually offered me ivermectin. And I said, screw it. I go, bring it over. I'll pay you for the 40-minute drive you're going to have to give me gas. I kid you not. I took a double dose, and I stayed regimented with it. I had no fever within 24 hours, and I was back to work 2 days later. I wasn't 100%, but I was salvageable. I was actually freaking nervous. I'm not kidding. I was pretty concerned.
When did you, E-Rock, when did you get that?
That was, oh my gosh, that was 2021. I got it in 21. It was during the winter because I remember
was it before the Delta variant, or was it the Delta variant?
It might have been the Delta variant. I don't, dude. It was so long ago. I don't know what variant I had. I have the.
No, I know that's crazy.
It's crazy. I don't know if it says on there what variant I had, but I'll tell you, it just really pissed me off because I got to see sort of the worst of humanity and wrapped up in 2.5 years between shutdowns, school shutdowns, not using common sense when it comes to how we could truly prevent this, the money not being allocated appropriately. Based on how we were treating each other in and of itself was horrible. And then you have people that and hydrochloroquine. I did that homemade stuff or whatever. I tried that didn't work. I boiled the peels of the grapefruit that they said to do. That didn't work. That didn't do anything. But and I personally think that you have to have a buildup of vitamin C and zinc and all those things in your system prior to getting sick to being less sick, not just doing it when you're sick, because now you're playing catch up and catch up doesn't work. But I mean, I don't know. I was fired up to see all these people being labeled cuckoo when, if I'm correct, didn't ivermectin win a Nobel Peace Prize because they found different uses for it? I might be wrong, but that's what I thought I read. And so why are we shutting stuff that could possibly
river
work?
blindness? Did you know that? It's a river blindness. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, just
Go ahead, George.
speaking of that too, though. So, and I'm not sure this is 100% correct, but very much like protein folding or like bacteriophages, one of the interesting things about your potential technology is that it's like lock and key, correct? It only engages with what it's supposed to engage with, and if it doesn't, because of the folding, it can't actually do anything else. So it is non-toxic in the most literal sense.
Yeah, our target is something called the galectin-3, and when you target the galectin-3, I kid some people. I say there's no good galectin-3 in your body. I mean that's not entirely true. There's intracellular and extracellular, so inside the cell, outside the cell, and we're mainly dealing with stuff that's outside the cell. It's it's really not that good, and high serum levels are correlated to really bad outcomes in COVID-19. I mean, there's this one peer-reviewed journal article where it was like, if you had galectin, I'm talking about galectin-9 now, but if you had galectin-9 and it's over a certain threshold of galectin-9 serum in your blood, there's 90%, 98% chance you're going to die. That is the best biomarker that you have for bad prognosis that there is. So you kind of wonder, okay, that's really nice information. What if we blocked it? We kind of know the answer to that now, but back then no one was listening.
Yeah.
I got one more for you, Rock. I've always been fascinated that within the drug industry, right? I think that the public at large thinks that there's a problem and that pharmaceutical companies go out and try to solve said problem. When in point of fact, they usually have a drug, and then whatever the drug does in the trials, that's what they end up marketing it to. So it'll be interesting to see how your determination actually trying to solve a problem rather than just marketing a pill that makes your toes hairy.
Well, I have an analogy for that. Okay, what we see a lot of drug companies out there doing is what they're doing is they are going after the symptoms. So the symptomology of the disease. They're trying to curb the symptoms of the disease. Okay, we're a little bit different. Call us the dandelion hunters. Okay, the whole idea of the dandelion. So what happened? Pretend dandelion is the disease, right? So what everyone else is doing, and this is what makes us different. Everyone else is ripping the tops off the dandelions. You know what? That's fantastic for drug companies. Why? Because the dandelions come right back up again, and you need the drug to rip it off again, right? But what we are is we're the dandelion hunters. We take it out by the roots. So we yank the disease out by the roots. That's what we're about. And that's what makes us different. And that's why investors, if you're listening to this, that's why you want to support our technology. Are you sick and tired of just treating the symptoms and not getting to the root disease? If you are, continue to buy big pharma stocks. Okay. If you're not, support little pharma.
Yeah, and I'm with you there 100% because I think there are more than one solutions, and I often think that they want one solution. And there's a lot of you could even take antidepressants. In all, like there's many antidepressant pills, but many of them are the same chemistry, just marketed differently. Yep. And so, and it is a money making machine, unfortunately. So let's get into I could go down the rabbit hole and really get fired up. We did. And I get fired up because I like common sense. I want to see solutions for problems. And, I don't think sometimes they want the solution, but that's just it. But let's get into the science behind what you're going to bring. The treatment to not only COVID, but you mentioned to me RSV, influenza. Let's talk galectins, it's a term that I never knew before I started researching BIXT. I watched some of your most recent interviews and read some articles, and I am really floored, but not shocked that this has not been talked about by the mainstream media or exploited by big pharma. So can you explain what these galectins are, how they impact cells in disease expansion, and could you go even further and talk about galectin inhibitors? And if you want to use that space analogy, you could do that.
Okay. Well, galectins are signaling proteins that recognize carbohydrates. I mean, that's what they are. They are also adhesion molecules. All right. So if you look, and I want to look at this in the space analogy. All right. So what happens is you're in the solar system, and galactons are the little spaceships. And what they do is they're going to connect other little spaceships together, or they're going to send a message from one spaceship to the next. I mean, you see, that's what's happening. That's what galactons are doing. And they're signaling the immune system. That's what's really happening behind the scenes. So that's kind of what galactons are, why they're important. A lot of chronic diseases are caused by our immune system being out of whack. So since these are modulators of the immune system, hopefully you can kind of see why they're so important. I wish I had that graphic that shows the fibrotic cycle of the fibrotic cycle. Now, when I say fibrotic, you're like, what the heck is? Some people don't even know what fibrosis is. Yeah, well, we can get to that. But fibrosis is basically stiffening of your organs. Your organs need to be really pliable and stuff. And I'm going down a rabbit hole for a little bit of a reason. But at the center of that fibrotic cycle is a galectin-3. And it creates this feedback loop that feeds on itself. So when you target that galectin, what happens is that feedback loop just stops. So it restores homeostasis to that inflammatory cycle. So hopefully you guys are getting it. So what happens is, this is the thing that causes all these type of diseases. The galectins, they're the central root of it, because they cause this feedback loop that goes over and over again. And when you target it, it just dampens it down, and then the immune system restores to normal function. See, that's what's so intriguing about that. You can throw that slide up, and I can explain what this means. So this slide here, what happens is, this is our roadmap for viruses, for checking on viruses of the future. Like you can see there, you see coronaviridae, that's COVID, right? And then we did in vitro studies on RSV. Interesting. Now, you notice what's to the right of it? Nipah, that's like a cousin. That's like the difference between SARS-CoV-1 and SARS-CoV-2 and SARS-CoV-3 or whenever that happens, right? And then you can kind of see influenza up there. Do you see that? So, and then there's different types of influenza. You have the bird flu, and you have the H1N1. So you can kind of see this is a roadmap, and we've just explored like 3 of them. You see that Flaviviridae? Well, that's like Ebola. Ebola's in there, I think. This gives you an idea. Is the research is done. Do you notice how galectins are upregulated and downregulated? So that is called the galectin signature, the disease signature. And what we're doing, which is so fascinating, is that we can eventually create molecules for that specific disease signature and target it. So again, what are we doing? We're picking the dandelion out by the roots.
So the galectin enables the virus to be successful, and the galectin inhibitor stops that process from going forward.
Well, we have a theory on what the galectin does. There's this, and we need to pull up another chart. Why don't you pull up the spike protein chart, and I'll kind of explain what the galectin does. Yeah, that one. All right. So a picture's 1,000 words here. So antibodies, or this is a target. Like the spike protein is a target, and you see it in its naked form, and then you see it covered in sugar as it exists, right? So just eyeball it. So if you want to attach to that spike protein, you need to get to a light blue region, right? Where's the light blue region? The biggest light blue region on the tip, right? That's where the antibody attacks or attaches, right? Now, where else do you see a light blue region?
Down to the
It's
left.
kind of circled, guys.
Yeah.
Now, that's a named region spike protein. Guess what it's called? The galectin fold. I wonder what goes in there. So when we came into this discovery, you know how many minutes it took us? It
Wow.
wasn't very long to figure this out. I mean, it's a named region on spike protein. So let's get to the next slide, which shows the antibody. No, the antibody one. We're going to neutralizing the spike, if you would. Yeah.
Oh, by the way, I gotta say, producer Rob and I have really we've learned a lot with medical terms in the last 24 hours, especially with these slides. Like, my gosh! All right, but we're learning something here. This is an educational forum. All right, go ahead, Mike.
So you see that antibody, it attaches to the tip of the spike protein, and it's like little pincers on there. But what happens is it's easily knocked off. And what we do is our molecule binds to this other region. But what makes us so different is antibodies are really expensive to make, and they have to go through lots of testing to make sure there's no off-target effects. Because antibodies can be seen by the immune system. Our molecule is not seen by the immune system that we know of. I mean, we haven't tested it, but it's not seen by the immune system. So what happens is go to the liver thing, and we'll complete the mechanism of action on this.
Now, is it, by the way, one of those molecules? Isn't it like 1,000 times smaller than red blood cell or something like that?
No, you're talking about it's 5,000 times smaller. That's BXT25. That's our oxygenation.
Oh yeah, we're gonna get to that. That's huge.
We didn't get to, I don't know. We're burning up time like crazy, but
that's all right. You keep showing what you're showing. So
okay. Yeah, go back to that. So here's our theory behind the mechanism of action. See, we don't let the virus inside the cell. So the current antivirals, what they do is they mess up the replication of the virus once it's inside the cell. So I'm a military guy. You kind of went over that, right? So it's like, hey, I got this fort. Let's let them in and make a kill zone there. I mean, that's what they're doing, right? I mean, that's what an antiviral does. All right. Well, what do? You know what? Let's just bomb them before they even reach our shores. Let's annihilate them or neutralize them. Let's sink their boats while they're on the ocean. I mean, that's what we're doing, right? So our molecule, it attaches to the spike proteins, as you can kind of see a little green blob in the center there. And it attaches there and prevents the virus from entering. And then what happens is our liver sees this, sees our carbohydrate drug, which has the virus attached to it, or the spike protein attached to it, and just filters it out. I mean, that's our theoretical mechanism of action. Hopefully that helps give you a nice little overview of how these things work in viruses. It's different for chronic diseses.
Yeah, I mean, I love.
We got to save that for another show.
I know. I was going to say because this goes beyond COVID.
Rabbit hole is going to be we're going to be in China, man.
Oh my gosh! Now, just could you it's simply put how Bioxytran prolactin M is different from COVID vaccines and other drugs, simply put?
Yeah. What happens is a vaccine is designed to stimulate antibody production. So then when you get infected, you basically have antibodies to neutralize it. And I'm going to explain this like no one has ever explained it to you. Okay. So what COVID is when it comes to a vaccine is you have a fire in you. And that fire is when you get a vaccine, you have an amount of water to douse that fire, right? So what's happening is when you get the vaccine, they don't test to figure out how much water you just got to douse the vaccine. You have a certain amount of water. Your bucket could be this much, or it could be totally full. If it's totally full, and you start getting the disease, it's gonna put it out really fast, right? That's what a vaccine does. So it gives you probably a 1 to 3 day head start on the disease. Okay, that's all a vaccine does. All right. Now, an antiviral, what does it do? As soon as you get the disease, it stops it dead in its tracks, like Paxlovid. It stops it dead in its tracks, right? And doesn't let it get any worse. All right. So going back to the fire, it starves, like the antiviral starves it from the oxygen. It takes the oxygen out, right? The vaccines put water on it, right? And then what the heck do? We don't even let it get started, or once it's started, it stops. It stops from entering the cell. And then what happens is your body's immune system, does mop-up work. I mean, that's the idea behind it, is that we prevent the virus from entering the cell.
Okay, that makes, I'm strapping my brain around it right now. That makes complete sense. I'm going back to the space theory. Like I'm don't mind my science. I'm actually trying to think.
I'm trying to give relatable analogies.
And it does. I watched your other podcast.
No one's ever told how to look at vaccines. They give you a little bit. They give you a little bit of protection, right? And then with us, the idea is, we just stop the disease pathogenesis dead in its tracks. I mean, that's what we hope we're doing. And that's why, what was it? I think it was 88% of the people were PCR negative in day 3. That means, they go with the nasal swab, and they're, you're normally considered non-infectious. Now, do you know how the typical person, like a standard risk patient, if you got a nasal swab, if you got COVID and you did a nasal swab, well, in about 9 days, you're going to be PCR negative, if with normal immune system, right? And we had 88% PCR negative on day 3 versus 0% in the control group in our phase 2 study. Pretty impressive.
Very impressive.
I have a question. So, and I'm not sure if this is exactly the right way to think about it, but I think it could help. So, being that your drug acts as an inhibitor, which again can prevent the actual disease from even happening, which means the disease can't actually evolve to change to that because you're changing the binding site that it needs to start in the first place. Would you say that is sort of similar, although not the same exactly, as Narcan right now, and how that affects right now? Obviously, that's to stop people from opiate overdoses. But by the Narcan drug itself binding to the site, it makes it impossible for the opioid to actually bind to the site and do what it does. Yours, just instead of doing this against the drug, is doing it against pathogenesis.
Yeah. In other words, we make it impossible. Nothing's impossible, but we make it very difficult for for basically the virus to bind to the cell. Okay. A lot of target, so yeah, I think that's a pretty decent analogy. I'm unfamiliar with that, but I'm just saying the way you explained it makes total sense to me. Yes.
Yeah. And I could see why this is a benefit. I could use the flu shot as an example. You could get a flu shot for what they think is going to be the most common flu strain that year.
Yeah.
And it does nothing, but this literally can eradicate, if you target that specific galactin-3 from even entering your cell or even getting you sick.
Yeah, E-Rock, we did in vitro testing on influenza and RSV.
Yes, you did mention that. So, I mean,
excited about that.
It's insane. I mean, like, we're taught, well, I know you can't say cure, all right? And by the way, none of this is financial advice. There was a disclaimer in the beginning. But it's really remarkable. And, I think you guys are onto something here. And it's talking about the prolactin M, and I don't think we're going to have enough time to get to BXT25. I think that is going to be a whole nother episode in and of itself, because that BXT25 is huge. When I read about that, I mean, and the oxygen, basically solving oxygen suppression and all that stuff, it's really mind blowing. But I want to stay on prolactin because this is huge. and this is, I want to stick to the most recent S1 PR, but how can it reduce outbreaks and transmission and infection rates and reduce impact on economies by limiting the spread of new mutant virus outbreaks and thus reduce supply chain disruptions worldwide? I mean, like, and this isn't even just like towards COVID. This is towards any disease. Like, how can this be beneficial, like on the overall grand scheme of things, the overall scale?
Okay. So as a company, what do we do? Are we a COVID company? No, we're not a COVID company. We're an upper respiratory tract infection company. So the idea is you come in with an upper respiratory tract infection, and then what happens? They don't test you. Do you have RSV? Do you have COVID? Do you have no? Here, take this, go home. And that's the idea. So, but what's happening is, remember what I told you is it takes 9 days for a COVID patient to become PCR negative. What are you doing in those 9 days? You are spreading that disease. So what happens when if we can reduce that 9 days to 3 days? What if we can do that? That's going to stop a lot of that's going to counter the virus's increased contagiousness that keeps happening. Like, it keeps getting more and more contagious. This is the ideal, in my opinion, the ideal way to curb that contagiousness. So if we can curb that R naught and that contagiousness, what happens? We actually have a shot at like stopping the spread of the infection. There's something called R naught. Have you heard of that? You remember?
No.
R? Yeah. So it's how many times how many one person it infects how many other people. That's called the R naught. That's layman's definition.
Epidemiology.
What?
Epidemiology.
No, that's not what it is. It's how many. It's how infectious is this thing? How contagious is this thing? So it's a measure of contagion. So, and because that's what you're talking about. So if we stop this early, guess what happens? What the real impact is? The real impact is if we stop this so soon, so you don't develop symptoms. And we found this out, we're going to hopefully find this in our next clinical trial. Well, what's the incidence of long COVID? If you never get to the symptomatic stage, what's your chance of getting long COVID? Right now, it's roughly 1 in 5. I'm spitballing there. But if you can reduce the incidence of long COVID, you know what impact that's going to have? I think a lot of our labor shortage issues can be traced back to long COVID. So if something like this comes out, I think it's great for the whole world economy. I mean, do you see from the economic side of it? Because look at what you're doing. This one thing, if you can get people to take this, and imagine this. I mean, this is a hypothetical, but imagine this: you get COVID, and this is not something that we're going to do. A partner would do this, but you get COVID, and then you go home, and then what else? You bring home some dosage for your family. I mean, they're doing studies like this in influenza right now. What happens if we give this to them and where it acts as a prophylactic? We're not doing. I just want to be clear. We are not doing any prophylactic studies. We're just kind of hypothetically talking about this stuff. But that's a really interesting thing. Imagine what we could do to this disease if it's got nowhere to hide. Imagine, and look at the impact it could have. It's pretty big stuff.
Yeah, it sounds like a solution to me. And so, I did have a question regarding, potential long-term health benefits of Bioxytran and galectin, but obviously you're not there yet in regards to.
We're if we do a clinical study, it's going to be very quick and very cost efficient. Okay, it's not going to be long. It's not going to be long term. So, anyhow, hopefully that answers that question.
Arlix did have a question for you. If you attack the source and not the symptoms, how do you fight back from big pharma and politicians from choking your company out?
I think we have a really good relationship with the agency. I really do. I think it's going well. You see, what you have to do is you have to follow the rules. and we follow the rules. We have Dr. Platt, he's our CEO. And I want to tell you, he's been in this business 30 years. If there's a trick, or I can't say trick. No, that's not the right thing. If there is a methodology, he is going to find the most efficient way to handle the situation. So, so that's what we have. That's our secret weapon. Got a guy who's our secret weapon. Forget about his military. He was military trained too, and he does karate. So he thinks that way too. But he wants to attack the root of what's going on in the regulatory pathway. So we have a person with incredible, exceptional regulatory experiencing leading our team, right? That is our secret weapon against big pharma, right there. Does that make sense? That's what they're up against.
Makes sense to me, Alex. I hope that answers your question, man. I do. We only have time for a couple more questions, and I know, and if you ask Mike, I mean, you gave a list of a lot of questions. I mean, this could be a 3-hour lecture and beyond. So, we are going to have him back on again. But I did want to ask about, in regards to cancer, are there possible future applications related to reducing cancer risk, or even synergistic applications for use in sync with chemo for cancer? I mean, what do you think about that? Because I mean, I think I read something that like the galectin-3 is still an indicator for that too.
Yeah, this all traces back to Dr. Platt. He developed a molecule that's or a couple molecules at another competing company, that's they did the cancer research. So we can piggyback off of what they did. If you want, I think you had a slide on that. You can see some before and after pictures of that. But if you piggyback on what they did, there is definitely a case for, and many journal articles that back this up, for using the lectin antagonists in cancer. And we could go, we got to save the mechanism and all that sort of stuff for something later. But are we focused on that right now? No, we're very myopically focused on getting rid of viruses. And there's a lot of viruses. I believe there's over 2,500 viruses. And that's low. I'm being very conservative. Okay, there's way more than that. So that's our focus for right now.
Right on. I'm gonna.
But that's definitely on our radar screen. And if you look at our presentation, it's in the plan. But with limited time,
yeah, right on. I want to get to a couple people's questions down here. Sorry, John Don had a question. What is the shelf life of your product? Would it make sense to keep it at home preparing for a breakout?
If this is approved, I can't comment on like the label like that. But in theory, yeah. This all makes sense. I mean, we just talked about the theoretical case as well. So now the shelf life of the product, it's very stable. But we haven't released any of that data, so it's let's say that for until we're further down along the regulatory pathway, if you know why.
Yeah, right on. Yeah, you could only speculate so much. I get it. So, but you guys are backing it up with these clinical trials and what it's going to be phase 3, which is great. Steve Capone, can this potential therapy prevent inflammatory diseases?
I do know there are not tens of articles, there are hundreds of articles, peer-reviewed reports on inflammatory diseases. It goes back to my galectin challenge. My galectin challenge is type in a chronic disease, any chronic disease that your mind can fathom, and then type galectin-3 after it. And what's going to happen? You're going to see a journal report, and it's going to conclude or say, hey, this is a biomarker for this disease, or it's going to say we think a galectin antagonist is a therapeutic candidate for this. I mean, that's how big it is. So Stephen, my hat's off to you. Take the Galectin challenge. Take some of those inflammatory diseases, put them in Google and Galectin-3, and see what happens. You will be sold at that point.
That is absolutely crazy. And like, in years, you know, in dealing, like, we could just use COVID as a reference. And the reference, I've never heard the term galectin used once. And so, like, the fact that this is what you're bringing to the table, something fresh for the reader and the researcher, and something that is going to work. I'm like totally rooting for you guys on your phase 3, and we're gonna do. And this was sort of thrown together, you know, in the last week or so. But I want to do another episode with you in the coming, you know, weeks to months, and just I want you to keep us updated, because this
got a lot of fun things happening soon.
Oh my gosh, it's absolutely huge.
might be sooner versus later.
It's really remarkable. I mean, because like I think that we should be looking for the cures, not treating the symptoms, you know, and that's what happens all the time. And you know what, this thing happens. Like, as a teacher, I've only been back, and you could hear it in my voice, like, for 2 weeks, and everybody's sick already. Like, you could just, you know, kids are walking around talking like this. They sound like, I don't know, they sound like dragons. No, if any of my students are watching, well, I'm picking on you a little bit. Just kidding. No, but I mean, but you see how quick these things pass. And imagine if we had these safeguards for us, you know, that would just, it would change the world economically and for better health and everything. So I'm excited for what you guys are doing, seriously. And so I wanted to give you the floor, and if you wanted to share some extra things and your final thoughts with for shareholders and potential shareholders that are here tonight and will watch this.
Someone asked me if it could help with Crohn's disease or other diseases like that. Don't ask me, ask Google. And you're going to find the answer out. So that's your homework.
So basically, you want to find the article with the disease,
yes,
and galectin-3 in it, and see what the correlation is.
Yeah, they'll give you their abstract and their reasoning behind why they think this is a great idea to use a galectin antagonist. Look, when it comes to the company Bioxytran, we're a value proposition. We are essentially a phase 3 ready company. And historically, when you look at the phase 3 companies have fetched like around 750 million plus valuation. Now phase 2 companies with a big indication are probably around 250 to 500 mil, right? And if you're phase 1, it's easy, you know, it's easy to justify around 100 million valuation, because drug development is not cheap, folks. It's not. And you're talking about a company with multiple disease indications, 2 platform technology. We didn't get to the other ones, but so I'll keep it on point. Okay. And then not only that, let's add to the fact that we diversified into regulatory risk. You have the risk of the FDA and then the CDSCO, which is India, the Indian FDA. So we are in 2 regulatory bodies seeking regulatory approval. So folks, we got 2 shots on goal, right? Now, what else is we have 100% responders rate in 2 peer-reviewed journal articles. When you get 100% 2 times in a row with the statistical significance that we have, statistics say what is going to happen on the 3rd one. Hopefully you guys can figure that out. So the bottom line is our science is extremely sound.
Wow. Man, I can't wait to sit down with you again, and we're gonna start breaking this stuff down, guys, as you invest, as you dig more into this company. Now that this was the maiden voyage for BIXT, go back, do some research, take the Galectin challenge, and you know, I know, you know, Michael Singleton, you know, he posted up here, I am interested in Galectin-3 and its association with type 2 diabetes. Do the Galectin challenge.
There you go, Galectin challenge.
Type it in Google. Man, Mike, I wish we had more time. We're going to do this again.
I'm with you, man. I wish I had more time with you too. This was fun.
We're going to do it again. So, all right, get this guy out of here. Get him out of here. Man, dude, that is, what do you think, Jordan? I think that was awesome. I cannot wait to have him back on. Like, seriously, phase 3 is going to be kick-ass.
Yeah, I wish I could go back to college and take biochemistry. No, I mean, there's just so many things that he said there, and there's so much that I'm going to have to look into. But yeah, what he's saying is amazing, right? And potentially transformative. It could definitely change the landscape. Um, there's some interesting ways that different companies go about trying to monetize, the health field and different drugs and services that they offer. And it's rare to see somebody attacking the problem at its root and actually trying to prevent it, altogether. And now with the Galectin challenge, being able to go out there and look on Google and see what they can't overtly say, because of the rules and whatnot. But I think once it passes the phase 3 and we get to see those test results, it's heavily implied that that we're going to have some pretty good results, because if it's 2 out of 10,000 companies, the other one being the one that cured hepatitis C, that's pretty impressive. It just by itself. And then I'm pretty sure once we start delving into the science and I find somebody who can explain it to me, I'm gonna find that there's some pretty amazing stuff in there. So that was really amazing.
Well, right on. And dude, and I'm telling you right now, and this is one thing that frustrates me. And we have 2 more things to talk about briefly before we go. I want to get to IGPK and ILIS, but I gotta say, because I gotta go on this tangent. It doesn't seem like they want solutions. Like, obviously, what this guy's talking about, what Mike was talking about, is attacking the problem at its source, preventing the problem, not just for COVID. Because I think, quite frankly, a lot of people are just sick of hearing about COVID. This just doesn't lie at COVID. We're talking about RSV. We're talking about influenza. We're talking about chronic illness, inflammation diseases, or diabetes. Like, look and do the research. Google's right there for you. I was very excited just to listen to him explain it, because I think this is what, and if he would have talked about this 2 or 3 years ago, and if he was just on social media, oh, you're a conspiracy theorist, we need a vaccine. Okay, but that's the problem, is that people don't want to dig, people don't want to read, people want to be told what to do. And we saw that for 2.5 years. People just want to be told what to do. Go get your shot, put on your mask, sit in your room. I mean, we went through 2 years of crap, of going through basically, no, don't go to the gym and work out. We want you to sit at home. No, make sure you order takeout. We don't want you at the park. We don't want your kids in school. We want you to sit on your ass and do nothing. And it was absolutely detrimental to the health of everybody. And if you agree with me, I hope you do. I mean, if you don't, whatever. I mean, and this is my opinion, but there was nothing positive that came from sitting at home on your ass and not going to the gym. there was nothing good that came out of that. I don't know, man. I'm ranting now, but.
Well, no, listen, I think that even though I don't necessarily agree with all of that, I do agree with some of it. I think that your point's well taken, and that there's always going to be different opinions. And I don't even think it's possible in situations as complex as these to ever know what the absolute best one is, unless you have already had the whole company's lifetime from its birth to its death happened, and then you pick the absolute lowest share price to buy in it and the absolute highest one to sell at. And since that's not how reality works, all we can ever do is keep actively searching out new information and the best sources of information. And I don't know any source better than the actual company themselves, especially when it comes with scientifically heavy material that most people don't really have any chance of, understanding, myself included.
Well, yeah. And I'm not, do you think I would never have done a video on BIXT to try and summarize any of this, just because I'd rather go right to the source, that's why we do it. You and I talked about this. You and I, Rob, talk about this. Like, we want to get the companies on. We want people to get good information, because people there might have been somebody watching this interview that's like, I don't like what I hear there. Maybe I'm not going to invest. There may be people that are like, oh, I like what I hear because it's right from the source. I think a lot of people heard things that they like, but I got to say, like, it's all about firsthand due diligence, right on. And you know what? Let's keep it going, because I know we're approaching an hour, and after our 2.5-hour marathon, we made an oath to sort of try and keep this thing like under an hour and a half. Let's talk ILUS, and we're just going to play a clip for you, and then Jordan is going to give his thoughts. And so, Rob, let's pull the most recent update from JP Backwell.
G'day everyone, JP Backwell here, CEO of Quality Industrial Corp, or QIND. This is just a quick update regarding the S1, which we have filed in line with our intended uplisting to the New York Stock Exchange American. So on Friday last week, as no doubt many of you will already be aware, we submitted a draft registration statement to the SEC, And we did this as we wanted them to confirm a couple of points before we proceeded with the live filing of the S1. Now, we expected them to take a few days to respond, but as such, they responded to our council yesterday already, quicker than expected. And so that's great news for us as we're now proceeding with the live filing of the S1. For us, it's a real positive to get this live filing submitted because it means that in addition to the SEC review being underway, in parallel, prospective investors can also look at the business and determine if they wish to be involved. And of course, it also means that you as shareholders can review it. So with that in mind, I just wanted to give you clarity with regards to the S1 registration statement, as we're now following our advised process towards an effective S1, with the intention that once effective, our company will uplist to the NYSE American. So bear in mind that over the course of the next few weeks or so, there is a process that we're following, and what is now filed is the first part of the process. Therefore, there are a few more steps that will take place prior to effectiveness of the S1. First up is obviously the filing of the S1, which has taken place, and so that the SEC can begin their review. But then prior to effectiveness of the S1, we will install several details into the live documents, such as the investment bank, such as offering details, including the number of shares of common stock being offered, the offering price per share, more detail around the use of proceeds, and an appropriate reverse split ratio if required. So I just wanted to be clear so that you're aware of the process from the point of the current S1 as you see it through to the final S1, as the aforementioned details and possibly any others deemed necessary will be inserted into the S1 prior to its effectiveness. And that is the advised process that we're following. You'll also note in the S1, if you're interested in the business itself, that in its new fiscal year, QIND generated approximately $87 million in revenue, just under $10 million in net income, and we have just over $205 million in assets and liabilities on the balance sheet. Now, for prospective investors, we've been very clear in the S1 regarding the growth potential of the business, our competitors, our competitive advantages, our manufacturing facilities, production capability, as well as the various risks facing the business, whether they be financial, macroeconomic, industry-related, management-related, more general risks, and so on and so forth. So it's indeed a detailed document, I think 116 pages all in all, and it's the culmination of an extensive effort by our team, to whom I'm personally very, very grateful. Over the course of the last few months, we've worked through legal counsel's very detailed due diligence, along with a ton of fact-checking, of every agreement, certificate, lease, listed customer, you name it. And then we also had the auditing of our local operating company, Quality International, and then QIND itself, both for the new financial period. So in my opinion, it's really an immense accomplishment by all involved, and we're pleased to have the S1 filed. And of course, we're now looking forward to taking the next steps in the process towards getting QIND up to a big board. It's also a key step for us towards getting important resources in place. The resources that, of course, will enable our business to realize its full growth potential, which includes everything from meeting our current order demands through to expanding further into the wider energy sector, which we actually talk about in the S1. The likes of manufacturing more infrastructure for the hydrogen and offshore wind industries, which are such a crucial high growth opportunity for our business. So I'd certainly say it's a monumental and exciting moment for our business, and we will, of course, do our best to keep you updated over the next few weeks where possible. But for now, I just wanted to update you regarding the live filing of the S1 and the process we'll be following over the course of the next few weeks or so. And I hope you found this update useful. Again, to our QIND and our ILIS shareholders, we once again thank you for your support. We're very grateful. And I think that concludes the update from me for now. So I'd like to thank you for your time, and bye for now until the next one.
Jordan, your thoughts?
There's so many things that just come up all at the same time because, I see it from different people's perspectives. Do I wish that I was starting to buy here and I wasn't buying 2 years ago when the price was much higher? Of course. Do I wish that all of these things had happened earlier? Yes. But I don't tend to fixate on those things because you can't really change them, right? And so what I like to do is just kind of look into the future, or at least the near future. And after the phenomenal amount of work that JP and Karsten put in, something like 120 hours, getting it submitted, It was almost like the secretary at the SEC was waiting there on a Friday afternoon at 4:59. They put the paper in her hand and she says, "Let me just get this filed for you before I leave for the weekend." These are all signs that point to the legitimacy and immediacy of a QIND uplist. It does not guarantee success. It does not guarantee no reverse split. It does not guarantee after a successful uplist that the stock will then also be successful. There are as many concerns and there are many risks, or as many risks as there are positive things. But what cannot be understated, and what Nick, Link, and JP have said, is that once QIND, or as I call it, the financial umbilical cord, uplist to the New York Stock Exchange, we're going to have access to resources and financing with better terms and larger amounts that's going to allow them to keep growing. I think that the main thing that's missed by everyone, if you peel all of the layers off the onion of FUD, is why isn't this happening faster? And to not take into account that there has not been the money or financing to do the different things that they want to because the markets have changed seems just, I don't want to say reckless, but it just doesn't seem like they're really looking at the problem. Inside of, let's say, 5 to 6 weeks here, 7 weeks, when they uplist QIND, you're going to see the big money pile in. You're going to see people that are actually looking at the valuations and the numbers that, Fred Z and Eagle and people are always posting on Twitter. And that's really what I'm focused on, not the fact that ILS traded $76,000 worth of stock in an entire day.
I'm not worried about it. I've always called this one of my long-term plays. I'm sitting all long-term capital gains right now, and I want them to succeed. And yes, there have been bumps along the way, but I'm just riding this one out, and I'm happy to be along for the ride. And it's my favorite OTC company at this point, just because it's one of my first investments, but it's one of my favorite investments. I got the chance to meet these guys at a shareholder meeting, and it's not just that. I've covered the due diligence for this one for more than 2 years now. So I do think ILS is going to fly. I think they're busting their asses working and getting things rolling. And but the truth is they are abiding by that layout that they did at that shareholder meeting 2 years ago. And they're building a huge conglomerate with $250 million in assets. They're going to be huge. And they are completely undervalued right now. And I think the best is yet to come, because don't forget, we got ERT, we got the eRaptor, the Serbian, the bigger site. You have the $68 million or so acquisition in Florida that we're talking about. And so I think there are many, many big things happening with ILS, and time will prove us right, I hope. But, so good luck to all the ILS shareholders out there. And, I think things are going to be, okay, but I could read between the lines, and I know that, every time I've tried to get JP back on the show, he hasn't dodged me. He's responded. I've asked him questions, and, it'll happen in due time, but the guy's busy. So, and that's just it, man. My allergies are I'm not getting emotional. I'm just man, my allergies are killing me. So yeah, I feel comfortable here, and I know you do. So, this is really all we got. Oh yeah, by the way, IGPK, we're liking that one a lot too lately, aren't we? That is Gene the Machine is getting things done over there at IGPK, and the numbers look great. I think we're going to be at news soon. I would look into that one. If you guys haven't already, not financial advice, but I own 3.2 million shares of it. I plan on getting more. I'd like to do a private placement at some point. We'll see what happens. George, your thoughts on IGPK? A little closing remark on IGPK?
Yeah, again, Gene just keeps impressing. The last tour video they did, I think it really just shows how quickly and how big their business could get. The numbers they were throwing around, their market cap's at $1 million right now. Their SEC reporting, they don't have any toxic debt. They're cash flow positive and don't have to borrow. There's a lot of positive things going on there, but again, I think the big one is that there's the ability for retail to reach out and ask questions. The reason that you're doing this, the reason that we come on here and do this, is so that people can come in and watch and ask the questions. And if they don't, posting and complaining later on doesn't really serve any purpose, because they're taking time out of their day so that they can give you guys the information that you want or need. And I'm very appreciative of that. Tom also did a really good job on that video, and
Yeah.
I already own it, but I will be buying more.
Right on. Okay, this was a great night tonight, man. It was very, very good. I'm glad we got an update from JP. It was awesome sitting with Mike Sheikh with BIXT. I can't wait to have him on again. That was information overload, and so
He was
it's that
amazing.
time. Yeah, yeah, this is good, man. I really like the atmosphere that we are building here at the BFC. This is completely authentic. It's not, I want to get these people on for you guys so that way you guys could ask the questions and be more comfortable with the investments that you're making. Obviously, this isn't the gold standard to due diligence, but I want to get as close to the businesses and the management teams as possible. So, George, thank you very much for coming on, brother.
No, listen, thank you. Like I said, it's funny because I'm just reminded of how little kids look at adults and just think someday they're going to magically be an adult. We're investors like everybody else. You just started this channel so that we could do deeper dives into the due diligence. And of course, there's no point in doing all that work to not share it with our community. So, thank you. And thanks for everybody that shows up and asks questions and, supports these CEOs that are ultimately trying to make us rich.
Right on, man. I'm just throwing some comments. Thank you guys so much for being a part of all this. Seriously, that is all we got today. Are you ready, Rob? Have a great night. And remember, there's more that binds us than breaks us. Peace out, guys.